A little girl held her mother and father's hands as she trotted through the dark car deck. It was pitch black, save for the bright headlights of other cars driving onto the ship, though she paid little mind to it. She was more excited that it was a nice, hot summer day in Seattle, Washington, and her family had saved enough money to get her to the zoo, and to take a short trip on a RORO ferry. Welcome to Fast Facts Friday. My name is Eleanor. Just a quick disclaimer for a younger audience before we dive in. This story may be disturbing to some, so viewer discretion is advised. Okay everyone, let's get into it. This week we get into some of my favorite ships, RORO ferries. RORO ships are cargo ships designed to carry wheeled cargo such as cars, motorcycles, trucks, semi-trailer trucks, buses, trailers, and railroad cars, and these are driven on and off the ship on their own wheels or with a platform vehicle. Sometimes they carry passengers as well. They either have built-in or shore-based ramps or ferry slips that allow the cargo to be let on and off in port. Most smaller ferries have built-in ramps or doors, and these ramps and doors may be located in the stern, bow, or sides, or any combination thereof. Before the invention of the RORO ship, wheeled vehicles were carried as cargo on ocean-going ships just like any other cargo. Automobiles had their fuel tanks emptied and their batteries disconnected, then being secured for travel. It was a difficult and tedious process, and vehicles could be damaged and not used for regular travel. An early roll-on, roll-off service was a train ferry started in 1833 by the Monkland and Kirkintilloch Railway, and they had a wagon ferry on the Forth and Clyde Canal in Scotland. The first modern iteration of train ferry was Leviathan, built in 1849 for the East Coast main line of Edinburgh, Leith, and New Haven Railway. Bridge technology wasn't quite able to make it out to Dundee and Aberdeen just yet to provide adequate support for the crossing over the 5-mile expanse over the Firth of Forth, so an up-and-coming civil engineer by the name of Thomas Bush argued for the creation of a train ferry with a roll-on, roll-off mechanism for maximum efficiency. Ferries were to be custom-built to match the rail lines and harbor facilities at both ends for smooth loading and unloading. Adjustable ramps were installed at the harbors to account for changing tides, with the wagons loaded on and off using stationary steam engines. The company was convinced, and they had the train ferry built by Thomas Granger, a partner of the firm Granger & Miller. The service commenced on February 3, 1850, and it was called the Floating Railway, being intended as a temporary solution until the railway could build a bridge. However, this would not happen until 1890, because its construction was delayed in part by repercussions from the catastrophic failure of the Tay Rail Bridge, built by none other than Thomas Bush, the man who pushed for the train ferry in the first place. During World War I, train ferries were used extensively to transport rolling stock, artillery, and supplies for the front in France. After the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, these same train ferries would transport everything back home. According to War Office statistics, a greater tonnage of materials were transported by train ferry from Rickborough in 1919 than in 1918, and this includes thousands of lorries, motorcars, and B-type buses. It was during World War I that the convenience of RORO ferries was recognized. Being able to drive tanks, guns, and lorries directly onto a ship and then directly onto a beach was quick and efficient, and this efficiency had a market in the commercial atmosphere. From this idea, the RORO ferry we know today was born. Between World War I and World War II, Lieutenant Colonel Frank Bustard formed the Atlantic Steam Navigation Company, wanting to create cheap transatlantic travel, but this didn't work out. During World War II, he observed trials on Brighton Sands of a landing ship tank, or LST, which allowed for vehicles like tanks to land directly onto the beach. After World War II ended in 1945, the world was Bustard's oyster. In the spring of 1946, Atlantic Steam Navigation Company approached the Admiralty with a request to purchase 3 LSTs. They were unwilling to sell them, but after negotiations, Bareboat chartered 3 LSTs to Bustard's company. These ships were the LSTs 3519, 3534, and 3512. They'd be renamed Empire Baltic, Empire Cedric, and Empire Celtic. Do these names sound familiar? It's because they echo the naming dynamic of White Star Line's ships, which all ended with the IC suffix, along with the Empire ship naming of vessels in government service during the war. An Empire ship is a merchant ship that was given a name beginning with Empire in the service of the government of the UK during and after World War II. The ships established a twice-weekly service between Preston in Lancashire and Larne in Northern Ireland. From this, RORO ferries would expand to become more popular. And we hope to do so as well. If you're enjoying this episode and want to hear more about ships, their careers, and their wrecks, check out our main show Shipwreck Sunday every Sunday night at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Alright, let's look at the main types of RORO ships. There are 4 main types of RORO ship, all of them still being considered roll-on, roll-off type ships. The first is Conro or Ro-Con ship, which is a hybrid of a RORO and a container ship. This type of ship has a below-deck area for vehicle storage while stacking containerized freight onto the top decks. Some Conro ships can carry a combination of automobiles, containers, oversized cargo, and heavy equipment. Separate internal ramp systems like a parking garage separate automobiles from other vehicles, Moffy roll trailers, and break bulk cargo. The next type is large medium-speed roll-on roll-off, also called LMSRs. This refers to several classes of military Sealift Command RORO type cargo ships. Some are purpose-built to carry military cargo, and others are converted for commercial service. Our next contestant is the ROLO, a roll-on lift-off ship. This is another hybrid type, the mix of RORO ships and LOLO ships, which are lift-on, lift-off ships. They have ramps serving the vehicle decks, but with other cargo decks only accessible by gantry crane or when tides change. And finally, we have my favorite type of RORO ship, the ROPAX. The ROPAX is a roll-on, roll-off passenger ship designed for freight vehicle transportation along with passenger accommodations. Technically, this encompasses all ferries with both a roll-on, roll-off car deck and passenger capacities, but in practice, ships with facilities for more than 500 passengers are often called cruise ferries. It's kind of like how not all hot tubs are jacuzzis, but all jacuzzis are hot tubs. RORO ferries are an incredible feat in engineering, but they get a bad rap and there's a good reason for it. The seaworthiness of RORO ferries has been brought into question on numerous occasions because they have large external doors close to the waterline and open vehicle decks with few internal bulkheads. This has a reputation of being quite the high-risk design, to the point that they've gained the nickname of roll-on, roll-over ships. There are several risk factors with this design, one of which being an improperly secured loading door that can cause a ship to take on water and sink, and this happened in 1987 with MS Herald of Free Enterprise. Water on the vehicle deck sloshing back and forth can set up a free surface effect, which causes a ship to become unstable and capsize. Free surface water on the vehicle deck was determined to be the immediate cause of the 1968 capsizing of the TEV Wahine in New Zealand, and a contributing factor for the devastating loss of MS Estonia in the Baltic Sea. However, despite these incidents and risk factors, the very high freeboard, or the distance from the waterline to the upper deck level, raises the seaworthiness of RORO ships. An example of this is the car carrier MV Cougar Ace that listed 60 degrees to port in 2006, but did not sink, since its high enclosed sides kept water from entering the ship. The ship was salvaged and continued her career until her scrapping in 2020. In late January of 2016, MV Modern Express was listing off France when cargo shifted on board the ship. Salvage crews secured the ship and it was hauled to Bilbao, Spain to be brought upright, then being sent to Turkey for scrapping. RORO ferries are still incredibly useful and widely used around the world, with a mixed reputation among the public and ship lovers alike. I myself love RORO ferries and looking into their stories, and hope to see innovations continue to improve the safety and reliabilities of these awesome vessels. If you liked that story and wanted to hear something similar, check out our cruise ships, ferries, and RORO ferries playlists in the cards. Stay tuned this Sunday for the story of MV Princess Victoria, a British RORO ferry that sank in the North Channel in 1953. Thank you for tuning in to Fast Facts Friday. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next time.